Well, so we are here at the critical discussion forum for week two. And well, I guess the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the article. And the one thing I gathered, the main concept I gathered from it is how critical thought and creativity simply cannot go without each other. They are bonded. They're bonded and it's like they cannot be separated. And in fact, it makes a lot of logical sense because creativity involves having creative thoughts, and then those thoughts need to be analyzed critically in order to come up with something that will be, I would say, of essence to someone else or to a community, for a society. Essence in the sense of learning, something that someone else can take away from and integrate that into his or her own life. So it really is about imagination. And after you use your imagination, how to analyze what you've done, what you've created. And hopefully that will set up a standard for other people to even to imitate. So I like one thing, which is also it's connected to this was that the article says that we are inherently proficient at daydreaming and fantasizing, and I think it's true. I'm a victim myself of that, and I think part of the reason is I don't feel I am the same as I used to be, but part of the reason is because we don't apply coherent thinking in most of the things we do per se, and without no further actions, without no analysis of our actions, in forcing ourselves to think even further about challenges we have, we we kind of put ourselves at a limit, and we don't go beyond that limit. So we're not really forcing ourselves to even think outside the box, if you know what I mean. And it's a matter, I guess. Part of this means that creativity and critical thinking, for me, it also means to be able to learn to unlearn. So in other words, you've been to go beside, you have to go beyond what you've been taught, if you will, and question it, and question and question, to further know yourself, to further know and analyze your own thinking. That's how I resolve this first aha. And when it comes to the video by Richard Paul, I think he's always giving a lot of relevant and great information for all of us. And it's really, I think it's a challenge. It's still a challenge for me, and I'm sure it's a challenge for all university scholars when it comes to freshmen, sophomores, seniors, juniors. Writing is always a challenge, and again, creativity is also involved here. So it's all linked together. And he mentioned a quote saying that in order to be creative, more or less, in order to be creative, sometimes creativity implies do it in any way you can. But he's right when he mentions that, well, if there's no direction behind that, then maybe sometimes out of luck something can happen and it works out. But it's not. I suppose it's not often the case. And what he's saying is that there always have to be a base, and when it comes to creativity, and that base implies having a logic to it. I think that's what he was trying to say when it comes to just putting everything together and into the logic of words and the meaning that comes to that. So it's all tied up together in a sense that to be creative, you need to have a logic behind everything you do in order to develop something, a product, a paper, a well-written paper, and it does require a lot of reason in your writing. So I what I gather here is that altogether he mentioned three words: discipline, constraint, and interconnectedness. And I think it's all true, but I find that the solid base here is having discipline, and that discipline implies being able to say resist the pressure of the challenges that we are faced with. And it again, it does require understanding your own thinking and then knowing what to do and how to do it. And I know that it's difficult for many people. I'm not an exception. I'm trying to be different, of course, but it's not always the case because we have things that affect us in our daily lives. So it does require writing does require very careful thinking. I think it is hectic. I think there's always we have to push ourselves more. And I liked how he sort of made mention about when you write something, he rechecks the writing. And maybe some people recheck the writing once or twice, but I do agree that I would say we have to recheck our writing, let's just say 1,000 times per se. No, if you all know what I mean. And it's the only way to keep pushing ourselves to find our flaws and making ourselves better. And then the thinking process goes on and goes on. And I think that's really how you become better. And it's not it's anything but easy because it implies thinking a thinking process, and it can exhaust a person. Regarding the chapters we read as to close this AHA video, well, chapter 8 talks about the design for life, and it really calls my attention that how the author mentions how the media affects critical thinking and injects these thoughts into our minds. And I think this is really, it's always been happening, or for a long period of time, since we have technology and we have television and we have music. And I guess it does affect our freedom of our freedom. Some people call it fate, but it's really about how we have our freedoms to, I would say, control our fate. And we have to choose, and we have to think objectively. And I don't want to make this too long, but I think one of the biggest issues that's happening all over the world, in many countries arguably, is how a certain genre of music, the type, reggaeton, it's sort of an English version of hip hop, if you will, is really affecting the youth, Generation Z, with its sexual content, and it's really penetrating these minds to the point that I've literally seen 2 or 3 year old children dancing in ways that implies sexuality, and people are growing up with this, and it's just, I guess it's part of a lifestyle, but it's part of a erroneous lifestyle. So yes, I think that this example is a way of how people are blocking themselves, even when it comes to music and how music affects their thoughts. And finally, in chapter 3, I think it talks about intellectual perseverance. And in effect, is it really common or not? It's hard to say if it's common, but it seems like it's not, because we have everyday challenges and obligations, and we let that come into us and affect us. And I don't want to get into this, but in a way, it's because of the way the system is designed. The system, I mean, worldwide system. I don't want to get into it, but I think you all can infer what I mean. That, of course, includes the mass media and everything around us, or job pressures, the multinational companies, and the way people are forcing us to work. So I think even at universities, there are several standards for writing a paper, and I think it's great because it's systematic, but it has to be systematically productive, and I would say not systematically, let's just say, boring. So intellectual perseverance is also the same thing I talked at the beginning. Is being able to analyze what you're writing, analyze what you're doing, and keep pressuring yourself to revise and revise and analyze what's good, analyze what's bad, and keep and make the best out of it. So that's pretty much what wraps up this discussion forum, and I'm open to any critiques. And there you go. Thank you.